Hello and welcome back to the show. It is wonderful to have you here with us. Today we are opening up a topic that I think a lot of people assume they understand, but when you really peel back the layers, they might actually have it completely backward. We are talking about character. And I know as soon as I say that word, some people might glaze over.
Oh, absolutely. It does sound a little bit like a lecture from a school principal, doesn't it?
Exactly. It feels dusty. You hear character and you think, oh, we are talking about personality or maybe reputation, what people say about you when you leave the room.
Or just, being a nice person.
Right. But we're looking at a stack of research today, primarily anchored in a classic text by Ralph Waldo Trine called In Tune with the Infinite. And when you pair his work with the research we have from the Stoics, from Aristotle, and even modern psychology, it turns out character is not about being nice. It's about structure.
That is the absolute key word for this entire discussion. It's architectural.
Right, architectural. That word kept popping up in the notes over and over again. We tend to think of character as this sort of vague cloud of traits, like, oh, he's funny, or she's grumpy, or he's kind of flaky. But Trine, along with the Stoics and even the modern psychologists we're going to look at today, they argue that character is something much more solid. It's the result of thousands of tiny choices. It's a building. And the scary part, or maybe the empowering part, is that we are the architects.
It is empowering, absolutely. But let's be honest, it's also a heavy responsibility.
Yeah.
Because if you accept the premise that you are the architect, you can't blame the weather for the house falling down. You can't blame the soil. You have to look at how you poured the foundation.
And that is the core conflict we're unpacking today. Most of us, I think, feel like victims of our moods or our circumstances. I wake up grumpy, so I have a bad day. I feel unmotivated, so I don't work.
The economy's bad, so I'm anxious.
Exactly. But Trine argues that this is the exact opposite of how it should work. He talks about a divine sequence of cause and effect where we determine the reality, not the other way around.
It's a shift from being a thermometer to being a thermostat.
I love that analogy. It's so simple, but it explains everything. Break that down for us.
Well, think about what a thermometer does. It just hangs on the wall, and it reflects the temperature of the room. If it's cold outside, the mercury goes down. If it's hot, the mercury goes up.
It's got no agency.
None. It's a victim of the environment. It's completely reactive. A thermostat, on the other hand, sets the temperature. It reads the room, sure, but then it activates an internal mechanism to change the room to match its standard. Trine is telling us to stop being thermometers and start being thermostats.
Okay, so we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of how to actually build that internal mechanism. Because it's one thing to say, be a thermostat, and it's a whole other thing to actually do it when you're tired and stressed. We've got the traps you fall into, which I definitely fall into, the specific method to get out of them, and even a reset exercise later on. If this episode helps you, please hit like and subscribe for the next one. Because we're really trying to build a library of these conversations that connect the dots between, the old wisdom and the new science.
And today is a perfect example of that connection.
Yeah.
We're taking a book from the late 19th century, In Tune with the Infinite, which uses very spiritual, almost mystical language. And we're going to see how it lines up perfectly with modern cognitive behavioral therapy and ancient Greek philosophy. It's fascinating how these different fields, separated by thousands of years, all converge on the same truth. That we build ourselves.
So let's start with the definition. Trine has this core point that character is not fixed. And I think a lot of us feel like, well, this is just who I am. I'm a procrastinator. I'm short-tempered. It's in my DNA. My father was like this, so I am like this. But Trine says, absolutely not.
Right. He is very firm on this. He says, within yourself lies the cause. That's a quote that should probably be tattooed on the inside of our eyelids. Within yourself lies the cause. He's arguing the character is not something you're born with, like your eye color or your height. You don't get a genetic test for integrity.
Right.
It's something you build, brick by brick, through repeated choices. And he emphasizes that these choices must be aligned with higher principles. It's not accidental. You don't just wake up one day with a structurally sound character by luck.
That is a huge distinction. Built, not born. I think we often look at people we admire, maybe a mentor or a historical figure, or even just a grandparent who is really steady, and we think, man, they are just so solid. They were born that way.
They're just made of different stuff than I am.
Exactly. But Trine is saying, no, you're seeing the finished building. You didn't see the construction site.
Precisely. You didn't see the years of laying the foundation.
Yeah.
You didn't see the scaffolding. You didn't see the days when they wanted to quit, but laid another brick anyway. Character is a cumulative result. Trine uses this concept of the divine sequence, which is really just a fancy way of saying cause and effect.
Mhm.
Thought leads to action. Action leads to habit.
And habit leads to character.
And character determines destiny. It's a mathematical equation, not a lottery.
So if we want to translate this character building into plain English, because Trine can get a little poetic with his infinite spirit and divine inflow, what are the actual nuts and bolts? What are the materials we're building with? If I go to the hardware store of character, what am I buying?
Okay, so the first thing I think is standards. Yes, knowing what you stand for. That's the blueprint. If you're building a house, you need a drawing. You need to know where the walls go. You need to know how much weight the roof can hold. If you're building a character, you need a standard. You have to define what's acceptable to you and what isn't.
So it's about having a code. This is where that idea standards over feelings comes from.
Precisely. Then you need self-command. That's the ability to actually follow the blueprints even when you're tired or hungry or annoyed. It's the muscle of the will. It's the foreman on the construction site making sure the work gets done.
Okay, so you have the standards, the self-command. What else?
Then you need consistency. Doing it when nobody is watching. Doing it when you don't feel like it. Trine talks about this idea of integrity, which literally means wholeness, structural integrity.
Right.
If a building has structural integrity, it stands up. If a person has structural integrity, they don't crumble when life hits them.
And that leads to responsibility, right?
Yeah.
Owning the output.
Right. If the house collapses, you don't blame the wind. You look at the foundation. Trine uses this metaphor of the inner home. I think this is such a beautiful image. He says we're building an inner home for our thoughts and our spirit.
An inner home.
Yeah. And if that home is built on a shaky foundation, if it's reactive, if it changes every time the wind blows, then the house falls. But if it's built on principle, it stands firm against what he calls the accidents of life.
The accidents of life. That reminds me so much of the Stoics. They talked about this a lot, didn't they? The idea that we can't control what happens to us, but we control the fortress inside.
Absolutely. We saw this in the research packet with Epictetus and Marcus Aurelius.
Yeah.
They talk about the inner citadel. It's the exact same concept as Trine's inner home. The world might be chaotic. The market might crash. Your boss might be a jerk. It might rain on your wedding day. Those are the accidents. Those are the variables.
But the inner home, that's the constant.
That's the constant. You determine the furniture. You determine the temperature. You determine the atmosphere.
And I think that distinction is what separates people who are stressed and anxious from people who are calm and effective. The anxious person is trying to control the weather outside. They're yelling at the clouds. They're trying to stop the rain. The calm person is focusing on insulating the house inside.
That is the perfect analogy. And Trine takes it a step further. He says that the atmosphere of your inner home actually starts to affect the weather outside. He believes that character radiates.
Really?
Yeah. If you build a home of peace and power, you actually start to influence the people around you. You change the environment just by walking into it. But that's the advanced level. The beginner level is just making sure the roof doesn't leak every time it rains.
Okay, so we have this idea that we're builders, we're architects. It sounds noble. But if that's true, why are so many of us living in shacks? Why do we feel like we're just reacting to everything all the time? Why is it so hard to build this thing?
Well, this brings us to the two main traps. And I think every single listener is going to identify with these. I know I do. These are the things that sabotage the construction site.
Me too.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the first one, the mood trap.
The mood trap. This is the enemy of character. This is the belief that I need to feel a certain way before I can act a certain way.
Oh, no, I don't feel like it.
The 5 most dangerous words in the English language. I don't feel like it. Or it's, cousin, I'm not in the mood. Trine and the Stoics would argue that living by your feelings is a form of slavery. You are letting a temporary physiological sensation, because that's what a mood is. It's just chemicals and neurons firing, usually caused by lack of sleep or hunger or a random thought. You're letting that dictate your permanent identity.
It's like letting the weather dictate whether you build the house that day. If you only laid bricks when it was 70 degrees and sunny, you would never finish the house.
Exactly. And most of the time, the weather isn't perfect. Most of the time, we're tired or stressed or bored or anxious. If you wait for the feeling of motivation to arrive, you're going to be waiting a long time. The architect knows that the work has to happen regardless of the weather.
Avoid the mood trap. That's a key takeaway here. But it is hard, right? Because the mood feels so real in the moment. When you're angry, it feels like the truth.
It feels like the truth, but it's usually just a reaction. And the Stoics had a specific tool for this, which is fascinating. In the research, we looked at the concept of impressions. An impression is that first hit. Someone cuts you off in traffic. The impression is anger, attack, or you look at a pile of work, the impression is, ugh, dread, avoid.
Okay, so the impression is that immediate gut reaction. It's the animal brain kicking in.
Right? It's the amygdala, it's survival mode. And the mood trap is blindly accepting that impression as an order. I feel dread, therefore I will go scroll on social media. I feel anger, therefore I will yell.
The person with character, the architect, does something different. Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher, said we should speak to our impressions.
Talk to them, like out loud.
Literally or internally. He said to say, wait for me a little. Impression. You pause. You look at the feeling and say, okay, I see you. Your anger, your boredom, your frustration. But are you the truth? Or are you just a reaction? Are you the master or am I?
That pauses everything.
It is the space where character lives. Viktor Frankl, the psychologist who survived the concentration camps, talked about this too. He said, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. If you have no gap between the stimulus and your response, you have no character. You're just a biological machine. Character building is the work of widening that gap. So when Trine says we need to avoid being victims of our moods, he's saying we need to stop letting temporary emotions write our autobiography.
That's a profound way to put it.
Because you look back on your life and you don't remember the mood you were in on a Tuesday 10 years ago. You don't remember that you were a little bit hangry, but you see the results of what you did or didn't do. You see the career you built or didn't, the relationship you saved or didn't.
Precisely. You see the house you built or the ruins. And the tragic thing is the mood passes, the anger fades, the tiredness goes away. But the action, the harsh word you spoke, the opportunity you missed, that stays. That becomes part of the structure.
So that's the mood trap. Living by feelings, excuses, reactions. What's the second trap?
The second one is even more insidious because it's quieter. It's the drift trap.
The drift.
Yes, Trine warns about becoming a creature of circumstances. This isn't usually a big dramatic explosion. It's the death of character by 1,000 tiny cuts. It's the compromise.
Stop the drift. Give me an example of what this looks like in real life, because I feel like I know what you mean, but I want to make it concrete.
It's the snooze button. That is the classic example. You set the alarm for 6 in the morning, the alarm goes off. In that moment, you have a choice. Do I keep the promise I made to myself last night? Or do I compromise? When you hit snooze, you drift.
Yeah.
It's the small white lie to get out of a commitment. It's skipping the workout just this one time because you're tired. It's engaging in the office gossip even though you said you wouldn't. These seem like nothing in the moment. They seem like tiny dots. But if you connect the dots, they draw a line. And that line points downward.
It's erosion.
Exactly. It's like water wearing away a stone. You don't see it happening day by day, but over time, the stone is gone. We saw this in the modern psychology notes about identity. Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become. When you snooze, you are casting a vote for an identity that says, I am a person who doesn't keep promises to myself. When you gossip, you cast a vote that says, I am a person who creates drama.
That hits home. It makes every small decision feel heavy. Like, does every choice have to be this existential crisis?
It doesn't have to be heavy, but it should be significant. The drift is subtle. You don't wake up one day and decide to have no integrity. You just drift there, one compromise at a time. Trine argues that to build character, you have to stop the drift. You have to be intentional about every single vote. You have to be awake at the wheel.
It sounds exhausting, honestly, to be that vigilant, to watch every single small choice.
It is effortful in the beginning. Trine admits that. He says the first hour is the hardest. But he also promises, and this is the divine sequence part, that it gets easier. This is the Aristotelian concept of habit. At first, telling the truth when it's awkward is hard. It takes a lot of energy. But if you do it 10 times, 50 times, 100 times, eventually it becomes your nature. It becomes easier to tell the truth than to lie. That's when you have built the character. The house is standing on its own.
That is the goal, right?
Yeah.
Automating the virtue.
Exactly. You want to reach a point where doing the right thing is the path of least resistance because you've grooved those neural pathways so deep. But to get there, you have to fight the drift in the beginning.
So we have the definition. Character is a built structure. We have the traps, the mood, and the drift. Now let's talk about the how-to. Because Trine and the other sources provide a specific method. It's not just try harder. There's a formula.
There is. And it breaks down into 3 distinct phases. The ideal, the action, and the realization.
Okay, let's unpack the first one. The ideal. This is where thought plus action equals character comes in.
This goes back to the architect. You cannot build without a plan. Trine says, thought is the force with which we build. Before you can act with character, you have to govern the mental workshop. You have to choose a principle. You have to decide what the house is supposed to look like.
So this is deciding, okay, I am going to be a person of patience, or I am going to be a person of courage.
Exactly. And it has to be clear. You have to visualize it. You have to hold that ideal in your mind. If you don't know what you're building, you'll just build a shed out of scraps.
Yeah.
You need to identify the standard. Trine talks about entering into the realization of this ideal in your mind first. You have to see yourself being patient before you can be patient.
It's like sports psychology, visualizing the shot before you take it.
Ideal, yes. You're priming the brain. You're setting the intention. Thought is the ancestor of the deed. If the thought is chaotic, the deed will be chaotic. If the thought is focused on the ideal, the deed has a chance to be focused. But thought alone isn't enough. That's just daydreaming.
Right, which leads to the second step, the action.
The action, or, as Trine puts it, the repetition. This is where the rubber meets the road. You have to repeat the action that aligns with the ideal, especially when the mood strikes against it. This connects directly to Aristotle's ethos.
I see.
He said, we are what we repeatedly do.
So it's not enough to just think it. You have to do the rep.
Thought is the seed, but action is the water. Without the action, the thought dies. You have to do the rep. Every time you choose reliability over procrastination, you are laying a brick. And Trine emphasizes the divine sequence here. Thought leads to act. Act leads to habit. Habit leads to character. You can't skip the act step. You can't just think your way into character. You have to behave your way into it.
And then the third phase is realization.
Yes. Become it. Align. Repeat. Become. This is the goal. Eventually, the separation between you and the principle disappears. You aren't just acting patient. You are patient. The structure is sound. You have realized the character. You have built the inner home. And this is where Trine gets really inspiring. He says that once you reach this state, you're in tune with the infinite. You're flowing with the current of the universe, not against it. Life becomes easier. You have fullness of peace, power, and plenty.
I really like how practical this is. It takes the mystery out of it. It's just a process, thought, action, realization. But let's ground this even more. I want to look at 3 specific areas where this applies, because I think listeners are asking, okay, but what does this look like at my job? Or with my spouse? Or when I'm trying to lose 10 pounds?
Great. Let's look at work first.
Okay, example 1, work. What does character building look like in the office?
Well, let's contrast the mood drift approach with the character approach. The mood drift approach at work looks like procrastination. It looks like drama. It looks like doing the bare minimum because they don't pay me enough, or my boss is annoying today. It's reactive.
Right, I don't feel like it, or I'll just do it later, or it's not my job.
Exactly. The character approach, the architect approach, focuses on reliability and clean effort. It's not about being a workaholic. It's not about letting people walk all over you. It's about being the person who does what they say they will do without needing a manager standing over them. It's about how reliability is a superpower.
Reliability is a superpower. I like that.
It really is. Think about it. In a world where everyone is drifting, where people ghost you on emails, where deadlines are suggestions, the person who is simply reliable, who delivers the report on Tuesday because they said Tuesday, is incredibly rare and valuable. Trine would say this person has self-command. They aren't working hard just for the paycheck. They are working hard because their standard demands it. They're building their own structure of excellence. Even if the boss doesn't notice today, the character is being built. And eventually, that character commands respect.
And that feels different, doesn't it? When you work for your own standards rather than for your boss's approval, you feel more powerful. You're autonomous.
You are free. You are no longer a slave to the external environment. You're the master of your own craft. Yep. And that leads to a deep sense of satisfaction that a paycheck can't buy.
Okay, example 2, relationships. This is a big one. How do we apply this to our partners, our friends, our kids?
Huge. The trap here is usually manipulation or withdrawal. The silent treatment. Or saying, I'm fine, when you are not fine. Or snapping at someone because you had a bad day at work. That's the mood trap. You're reacting to fear or anger. You're letting the impression run the show.
So what's the character approach?
Truth with kindness.
Truth with kindness.
It's the ability to have the difficult conversation. To say, hey, what you did hurt me and we need to talk about it. But doing it without tearing the other person down, that takes immense structural integrity. It requires courage to speak the truth, avoiding the drift of just letting it slide, and it requires discipline to keep it kind, avoiding the mood of anger.
It is so much easier to just drift, to just let it slide and build resentment, or to just blow up and yell.
Drifting is always easier in the short term. Gravity always pulls down. Building requires energy. But the result of the drift in relationships is a house of cards. Eventually, it collapses. Resentment builds up until it explodes. The result of truth with kindness is a relationship built on rock. It can weather the storms. It deepens trust. Because the other person knows you will tell them the truth, and they know you will do it with care. That is safety. That is the inner home extended to another person.
I love that. Okay, example 3, habits. Personal habits, health, hobbies, learning a language.
This brings us to the tortoise and hare dynamic. The trap here is intensity, followed by collapse. We see this every January. People get super excited, they buy all the gear, they go to the gym for 3 hours a day for a week, and then they crash.
That's the mood trap again. I feel excited, so I'll do everything. Then I feel tired, so I'll do nothing.
Exactly. They're riding the wave of emotion. But waves crash. Character is structure and consistency. It's the ability to maintain a routine when the initial excitement fades. It's doing the boring work. Consistency beats intensity. Trine would say consistency beats intensity every time. The divine sequence doesn't care about your one heroic day. It cares about your 1,000 regular days.
It's the boring consistency that builds the skyscraper.
Right. You don't build a skyscraper by throwing all the steel beams into a pile on day one. You place one beam, then another, day after day. That is character. It's the ability to show up for the workout on the day you feel heavy and slow and just do the work. It might not be a great workout, but the act of showing up adds a brick to the wall of your discipline.
And that brick is more important than the workout itself.
Yes, the workout builds the muscle, but showing up builds the character. And the character is what ensures you'll show up for the next 10 years.
Okay, this is all making sense, but I want to get practical for the listener right now. We promised a reset, a way to stop the drift. Because I think a lot of us realize, okay, I have drifted. My house is looking a little shaky.
Yes. We call this the character compass reset. It's a short exercise based on the principles we've discussed. It's designed to pull you out of the drift and put you back in the architect's chair.
Let's walk through it. If you're listening, maybe don't close your eyes if you're driving, but try to follow along mentally.
Okay, so the first step is to identify one area where you have been inconsistent. Just one. Don't try to fix your whole life. Is it your diet, your temper, your punctuality, your scrolling habit? Pick one area where the drift has taken over. Where have you been voting for an identity you don't want?
Okay, I've got mine. I know exactly what it is.
Good. The second step is to name the principle you want to embody. This is the ideal. What's the standard? Is it integrity, courage, patience, discipline, goodwill? Give it a name. Put a flag in the ground.
Got it. I'm naming it.
The third step is to choose one small, repeatable action that proves it today. Keyword: small. Do not choose run a marathon. Choose put on my running shoes. Do not choose write a novel. Choose write for 10 minutes. What is the small, repeatable action that proves you are this person?
Okay. Small is good.
The fourth step is to choose one boundary that protects the action. What do you need to say no to in order to say yes to this action? Maybe it's no phone before 8 in the morning. Maybe it's office door closed for 20 minutes. Maybe it's I won't check email until I finish this task. You need a wall to protect the garden.
That is crucial, protecting the action.
The fifth step is to remove one contradiction. What is one thing you are doing that directly fights against this principle? Are you rationalizing? Are you complaining? Are you avoiding? Are you telling yourself a story that you're too busy? Identify the contradiction and commit to stopping it just for today.
Just for today.
And finally, the sixth step is to close with a short reflection. Ask yourself this question: what would my best self do next? Not what do I feel like doing. What would my best self, the architect, do next?
What would my best self do next? That is a powerful question to carry around in your pocket.
It cuts through the mood. It cuts through the drift. It puts you back in the driver's seat. It immediately engages the faculty of choice.
I love that exercise. It's quick, but it covers all the bases. Ideal, action, boundary.
And it builds the feedback loop. When you do the small action, you prove to yourself that you're the architect. That builds confidence, which makes the next action easier. That's the upward spiral. That's the divine sequence working for you instead of against you.
Before we wrap up, I want to hit on some common mistakes, because even with the best intentions, people trip up, we start building, and then we drop the hammer on our toe. What are the big ones?
I think the biggest one, which we touched on, is relying on intensity rather than frequency.
The heroic burst syndrome.
Right. We think character is forged in these big movie moment decisions, jumping in front of a bus to save a child. And sure, that reveals character. But character is built in the thousands of unglamorous moments. It's washing the dishes when it's not your turn. It's finishing the report. It's listening when you're bored. Small, boring consistency builds more character than heroic bursts. If you only wait for the big moments, you will fail the small ones. And the small ones are what make up a life.
Okay, so what's mistake number 2?
Waiting for the feeling to arrive before acting. We've hammered this, but it bears repeating. Action must precede the feeling. You act your way into a new way of feeling. You don't feel your way into a new way of acting. If you wait to feel kind, you might never be kind. But if you act kind, eventually the feeling of kindness follows.
That's a bumper sticker right there.
Yeah.
You act your way into a new way of feeling.
Mistake number 3. Judging oneself by intentions rather than actions. We're all guilty of this. We judge others by what they do, but we judge ourselves by what we meant to do.
I meant to call you. I meant to start the diet. I'm a good person. I just didn't do the thing.
Radical honesty is the fix here. Look at the output. Look at the data. Did you do it or not? Your character is the sum of your actions, not your intentions. The house is built of bricks you laid, not bricks you intended to lay.
Uh-huh. Tough love. But necessary. What's next?
Mistake number 4. Thinking character is private. We think, it doesn't matter if I cheat a little here, nobody knows.
But Trine talks about atmosphere.
Yes. He says energy radiates. Who you are affects everyone around you. You know this? You walk into a room and you can feel if someone is grounded and safe or if they're chaotic and reactive. You radiate your character. It's not private. It's your contribution to the world. Trine says that a person of high character carries a positive atmosphere that can literally lift others up without saying a word.
And the last mistake.
Trying to fix everything at once. We do the character compass reset and we try to apply it to diet, work, marriage, and hobbies all on Monday morning. And by Tuesday afternoon, we've collapsed.
So the fix.
Focus on one principle at a time. Build a solid foundation in one corner of the room before you try to renovate the whole house.
Yeah.
Pick one thing, master it, then move to the next.
Solid advice. Okay, we have covered a lot of ground today. From the mystic heights of Ralph Waldo Trine to the practical streets of stoicism and modern habits. Let's recap what we've learned.
Let's do it. 7 key points to take away.
The first point.
Character is not accidental. It is built by design. You are the architect. That's the whole idea of character is built, not born.
Second point.
The primary tool of building is thought followed by action. The thought creates the blueprint, the action lays the brick. You have to have both. Thought plus action equals character.
The third point.
Beware the mood trap. Do not let temporary feelings dictate your permanent identity. You have to speak to your impressions. Always remember, standards over feelings.
The fourth point.
Beware the drift. Small compromises accumulate. Every action is a vote for your future self, so stop the drift.
The fifth point.
Structure beats intensity. Consistency is the key. The tortoise wins. Consistency beats intensity.
The sixth point.
Your inner home determines your outer success. If the foundation is strong, you can weather the accidents of life. And remember, reliability is a superpower.
And finally, the seventh point.
Align with a principle, repeat it, and you will become it. That is the divine sequence. Align, repeat, become.
Align, repeat, become. It sounds so simple, but it's the work of a lifetime.
It is the most important work we do. Because at the end of the day, everything else, money, fame, possessions, can be taken away. But your character, that's what you're left with. That is what you are. And as Trine would say, it's what connects you to the infinite.
And speaking of what we are left with and how we impact the world, next time we are going to take this built character and see how it moves outward. Episode 11 is going to be on spiritual influence.
Yes. Trine has some fascinating ideas about how our character doesn't just sit inside us, but actually influences people and events at a distance. It gets a little more metaphysical, but it's the logical next step. Once you've built the power station, how do you transmit the power?
I can't wait for that one. Thanks for being here. If you want the full series, check the playlist, and please like and subscribe so you don't miss the next episode.